Good afternoon and welcome to Hangout Café Live. And I'm glad you're able to join us today for what promises to be a very, very important conversation. For those who are joining us for the first time, my name is Olu Adeaga and I'm the host for Hangout Café. And the topic for today is purposeful parenting, navigating potential pitfalls. And we're going to be talking about the real dangers that our children face in this, in today's world. So things like sex, drugs, gaming, pornography. Some of them are addicted to different apps. They're addicted to social media platforms, different types of addictions. And sadly, some may be even involved in crime that we don't know. But we're here because we want, and with the help of our guest baristas, we're hoping that parents will be able to pick from what the guest baristas say today on how to guide, how to protect our children. And the truth really is that it takes a community, we say it takes a village to raise responsible children. And that's why this is the fourth episode in the series, Purposeful Parenting. We started off with Purposeful Parenting, with Parenting with Faith and Grace. Then the second one was Purposeful Parenting, Navigating Single Parenthood Alone. Last week was amazing. We had the young adults, and it was Purposeful Parenting from a child's perspective, and that was really good. But the truth is that every session has been amazing. Every session has been amazing. So without much further ado, I'm delighted and honored to have three amazing people join us today as guest baristas. The first person we have is Dr. Yetunde Adeniyi, and I'm going to get each person to actually introduce themselves. We've got Dr. Yetunde Adeniyi, we've got I call him Lekan, and it's not Lekan, it's Lekan Aderemi. So he'll tell you himself. And then I've got my sis Jay. So I'm going to get them to introduce themselves. Dr. Yetunde, please can you start off by introducing yourself? I've unmuted you. Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, our dear hosts. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm delighted to be here this morning. So my name is Yetunde Adeniyi. I'm a consultant child and adolescent psychiatrist with the University College Hospital, Ibadan. I'm also a senior lecturer with the University of Ibadan at the Department of Psychiatry. I work mostly with children and adolescents on a day-to-day practice. I'm also the director of a center that looks after children with special needs, also in Ibadan. So the center has been on in the last 10 years. And so that gives a lot of community experience beyond the hospital and clinical practice. So I'm really very happy to come to this cafe. I would say that my favorite drink is water, but then I take coffee. Yeah, I take coffee when it's necessary, not every day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lekan Aderemi, and I'm married with children. I'm a Christian, I'm passionate about life, and I practice as a solicitor in the UK.
Thank you very much.
That's me.
Thank you.
My name is Jay Atie. Worked with young people probably good 16 years, 15 years in church. Outside of church, I don't even know. But my background is I'm a quantity surveyor, so I work in construction industry. But I took time off when my kids were young, and that's how I ended up in working with young people. But I used to have crazy dreams. I'll walk down the corridors in schools, and I couldn't understand it. But I had no idea God was bringing me into a ministry where I'll be working with a lot of young people, and that's me.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. We have our guest barristers here today because they'll be sharing both from their professional expertise and also personal experiences as parents, as mentors, as pastors. And so let's get started because we're going to be talking about pitfalls. Guest barristers, I would love to find out if can you share a time when you almost fell into a pitfall, both big or small, but managed to find yourself? Any time you fell into a pitfall or almost fell into a pitfall? Dr. Yetunde, have you ever fallen into a pitfall?
Okay, so a no will make me God. I mean, if I say no, that would mean that I'm God. So, okay, so I mean, several almost ending in pitfalls, and some actual pitfalls, actually. But so since we're talking about parenting, I'll just want to talk about something about my daughter. So I'm a medical doctor, and so I wanted her to be a medical doctor, you know, and so she's quite brilliant and all. So we got to the point of making decisions in JAMB and all that. We still insisted that it should be, medicine.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, in the whole process, it was, our body language was, I don't want to, or this is not what I wanted to do, and I think she's online right now. So we were on it, and she wrote JAMB, she did all of that. But then I realized that I was just going to make a very terrible mistake if I continue to push and push and push. And then she ended up in something completely unrelated to medicine. She's in education at the moment. And I could say that I'm happy that we took that decision because she's thriving, she's happy with what she's doing. I know that parents face this every day. We want to take decisions with our children, want them to be this, but then they want to be that. So that's one, almost a pitfall, because I could imagine if I had forced her, because I've seen experiences of students, medical students, who will get to 400 level, 500 level, and then they would drop out of school. So that's like, going back all the way. So, I mean, that's one not so far experience, almost recent,
Thank you so much.
Of many. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's amazing that some parents still fall into that, well, almost fall into that pitfall where they want. In fact, I was having a conversation with someone recently, and we're talking about how some parents still want doctors, lawyers, accountants, engineers in their families. But in this day and age, children want to do other things. But anyway, thank you for sharing that with us. Oga Lekan, have you ever fallen into a pitfall? Okay, just tell us one, because I'm sure you've probably fallen into several. Just tell us
That's
one.
an interesting question. Yes, I did fall into a lot of pitfalls. Growing up was interesting, very interesting. Went through school, but started falling into pitfalls, when I was in university, not necessarily realizing it, but as is the case with, with most of these things, it's always a progression, So from university, finished university, and I went to America and talk about pitfalls, So I fell into a lot of pitfalls, that you have to take the strong intervention of God. But that's a story for like another time, I'll go into specifics. Do you want to hear specifics? I don't think this is the forum for going into specifics. But yes, I did fall into pitfalls, and it's very easy, to fall into pitfalls. It's very easy. It's a common thing, and so many things are responsible for it.
Okay.
So like, I don't know how detailed you want my answer.
No, I'm sure when you're answering some of the questions, we would love to, because you're going to be speaking from your own experience. So when you're answering the question, we would really love to know some of the pitfalls. Also so that parents can help their children avoid falling into this pitfall. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Jay.
Yes.
Do you know what? Do you know why it's good to say this? Because sometimes as parents, we paint a picture of the perfect parent, you know.
No.
When I was your age, I was this. But the truth is that a lot of us fell into pitfalls. A lot of us did things that we shouldn't have done when we were growing up. So please tell us.
I had loads. My excuse, as my children would say, oh, you always say that you weren't born again when you did all these mistakes. So I would tell them, I'm quite open with my kids. I fell into loads. For one, I had no supervision at that crucial age. Between the age of 14, from the age of 14, I didn't have supervision, parental supervision. And the parental supervision that was actually in my life, I did not have much respect for her because there wasn't really a boundary. So I explored and pushed every boundary there was, got into fights. People were sending their children to Nigeria for discipline. I was sent to the UK the other way around. That's what I would say. And I got into all sorts. But it's God, because when I look back, my parents were not necessarily Pentecostal praying parents. My dad was a Catholic. My mom was, I think, Methodist or Baptist. So to look back, I know God had his hand on my life. And I always say to my children and the young people I work with, this is a crazy lifestyle I live. And a lot of them don't believe it. They don't, they're like, Auntie, you? I'm like, yeah. So it's easy for us, especially where there is no adult supervision. A child,
Yeah.
even a young adult, you just go astray completely.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Since we're talking about, you just shared about your pitfall, the next question I will ask is, what do you think are the greatest or biggest pitfalls our children are facing today, or potential pitfalls that they're facing today, from a professional or personal experience? Dr. Yetunde, you want to start us? Oh.
A couple of them that I want to mention. But I will say that from my professional point of view, one major one that I come across almost on a daily basis is the disparity between what the children want and what parents want. And so because we grow up in a completely different world, I would say, as parents, different from how they're growing up now. So there's always a battle of what is right, what is wrong. So we're coming from a place of you just have to listen absolutely to your parents. That's how we're raised. But then now children are, understand that they can speak out, they can say their minds, they can tell you what they want. And then that is not working so much with these current parents who grew up in almost a different world. So children then find out that, okay, so my parent can say this and I'll agree, but then I'll do what I want to do anyways. So the lack of how much parents can force their children to do things, I think is a serious problem. And then children thinking that I can do whatever I like. Okay, if you tell me what you want me to do, I can agree with you, I can disagree, but then I'll still go ahead to do what I want to do. So it's a serious, I think it's a serious problem, and it could be a pitfall for the children because they have a whole lot of alternatives, things that they can do, where they can run to, who they can speak with, and then they are not listening so much to their parents, who are basically traditional, just handing down instructions and rules and all of that. And then they could choose alternatives. And the alternatives sometimes could be wrong. Or most of the time, actually, it's wrong. So that's, to me, it's a major pitfall for them.
Thank you. We're going to talk about what these alternatives are shortly. So the disparity between what parents want for their children and what the children want. Anyway, Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Yetunde. Oga Lekan.
You know, there's so many things out there in the world of today. There's so many pitfalls. You know, there's all kinds of temptations out there. You know, there's prevalence of social media. There's, you know, there's cyberbullying. There's peer pressure. You know, we have mental health challenges, and the list goes on and on. But let me, you know, just you know, pick an example, you know, from a professional perspective. Yeah.
Yes.
Because as I said earlier on, practice as a solicitor, and predominantly I practice in the area of criminal defense. And I've worked with a lot of, you know, like troubled youth and even adults as well. You know, but since we're talking about children, you know, so pitfalls, you know, peer pressure, you know, bad company, you know, falling into bad company. And so many things are responsible for it. And it's not usually necessarily, you know, that you know, that the person comes from you know, there's no supervision, even though all these things, you know, they're very critical and they're necessary, you know. But what bad company does, and you know, it's very easy to fall into bad company, even when you come from a good home, even when you have good background, you know, on your own, trying to be cool. There's, you know, you're being pulled from everywhere, you know, trying to do a lot of things, trying to follow the crowd. And like I said, it's easy, you know, to be susceptible, you know, to doing these things. So bad company, it's really, I mean, you know, there's a Greek adage that says, you know, bad company, uh, okay, give me a second. Let me not. You know, bad company corrupts good character. And it's also a scripture, you know. So from bad company, so many things can happen, you know. I mean, you can start doing things that you are not supposed to do, and you may find yourself enjoying these things, you know, and it's a slippery slope, you know. So we want to guard against bad company. And, you know, we just want to like engage with our children. We want to find out who their friends are. Because if this thing is not handled the way that it's supposed to be handled, I mean, there's no telling where it will lead to. People join gangs, you know. In schools today, you'll be shocked, you know. Even in places like primary schools, you know, I mean, there are dope sellers in all these places, you know, who sell dope, you know. In secondary schools, you know, you know, I mean, you know, the drugs, you know, people just get, I mean, there's, you know, they get drawn into, you know, certain behavioral patterns that they're not supposed to. So we've got to be very careful, and we've got to be watchful. We've got to watch our children, and we've got to speak to them. We've got to engage. I mean, I use examples. I share my life, you know, minimally, you know, with my children. Then as it grows up, there are some things that I will share, but you know, there's only so much that they can handle now. You know what I'm saying? You know, so yes, you know, bad company, you know, it's just yeah, you know, it's just yeah.
So basically the influence on our children, outside influence, peer pressure, it's a lot. That's part of the reasons why
it is a lot, Pastor Funke. It is a lot. And once they get out there, you know, I mean, we really don't know what they're doing. You know, so we just want to, you know, keep engaging with our children and keep asking questions, you know, just wanting to find out who their friends are. It's very important. We need to know who their friends are, you know, and we need to kind of find out, you know, the kind of things they're doing and what they're interested in doing, you know, so that if we need, you know, to
can I interrupt you? Because one of the things that
yes.
I posted this week was that, does that mean that, you know, our children are hearing, and sorry, Jay, we're going to come to you, but because you've touched on this. So our children are hearing a lot of voices out there in the world. So does that mean that our voices as parents is not ranking higher in the lives of their children? That's why they're easily succumbing to the peer pressure, or what? Or it doesn't matter, even if the voices are loud? Or is it your voice can be loud, but maybe it's the quality of what you're saying to the children?
Well, you've said that in a very interesting way. I mean, we must have, we must be speaking to our children, and we must ensure that our voices are loud, but our voices are in competition with what is out there too, So that's why we cannot let up, we can't let up. We've just got to engage, and we need, to just probe into what they are doing. Because once they get out there, there's just so many things come into play. And they're young. I mean, they're young. They have this exuberance. And there's this, and they're different personalities.
Yeah.
Some of us have this propensity to just want to be bad. I mean, some people can be bad all by themselves. I happen to be one of those people. So it wasn't background, it wasn't anything. I just had this affinity for anything wild, anything bad. So you really don't need to corrupt me much, or you didn't have to. I was just interested in those things, and some people are like that. They have personalities like that.
Okay.
So yeah, we just, we need to pay attention. We just need to pay attention, and yeah, and just engage with our children. I can go on, but I'll let yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to you, and I can see that Dr. Yetunde wants to say something, but let's go to Jay first. There's a question someone has just asked, Jay. I know I've asked about the pitfalls, but the question is, what leads to bad company? Why do you, yeah, go on.
I think sometimes as parents, a child's temperament, just based on what Pastor Lekan was saying, the temperament of a child, if it's different from that of a parent, automatically there's a clash. And sometimes, especially those from our background, we just think this child needs more beating, this child needs more discipline, this child needs, and all you're going to do is cause that child to gravitate towards those that they identify with. Classic. There were 5 of us in the house, teenagers, but my younger brother took the title of the black sheep of the family, and the life he led, you cannot believe. 1, that he was an African child. 2, that we came from the same family. He was just crazy all by himself. And I remember my stepmom saying, is his friend leading him astray? No, my brother was leading everybody else astray. So parents, for my stepmom, it was beating him, disciplining him, and the beatings made no difference. In fact, I think those beatings caused the guy to have more muscles to just go away with. I think one of the key things, Lekan said, engaging. We need to engage with our children, not necessarily as a parent, yes, but building relationship. And even if you can't be that one that they could talk to, putting the right relationship around them, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
I think Dr. Yetunde made a statement where parents insist on certain career. I was one of those. My dad did not want me in construction. My mom wanted me in medicine. My dad wanted me in accountant. And by the time he came, I'd signed up as to do a building course. He was fuming, and he said to me, "You're not going to go anywhere." I said to him, "You've got a choice. Either you accept this, or when you go off to Nigeria, which you will be by the end of the summer, come September, I will be on that course. So which one?" My sister got the blame for it in the end because she was older. So parents, I think us as, what would I call it, first generation parents with children that have grown up in this culture, especially in the West, we need to change I think Kids First a couple of years ago talked, I was a speaker, bridging the cultural gap. Bridging that cultural gap between ourselves and our children, the way we've been raised and the way we think we're going to raise our children. That's really important.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing that. Dr. Yetunde, you were going to say something?
Yes, thank you very much. So I was going to just bring in a scientific perspective to what Mr. Aderemi, I don't know if he's a doctor, it looks like a professor.
You
Okay.
promoted me. Thank you.
Yes. So basically there are three group of factors that come to play in the lives of every individual. We have the biological factors, the psychological factors, and the social factors.
Okay.
The biological factors is those things that we have inherited, you know, our temperament, our intelligence, you know, the genes that are in us. So it varies from one person to the other. Within families, it actually varies from one child to the other. So that's why within a family, if you have 3 children or 4, one might be extremely brilliant, the other one is struggling a bit, and all that within the same family. So those are biological factors. Psychological factors is looking at the makeup of that individual. What kind of person is this person? Apart from the genes, what are the things that what are the kind of experiences that this person has had that has shaped who they are today? And then we then have the social factors, which are the external factors, the social media, the peer pressure, the neighborhood, the kind of nutrition, the government, all those are external factors. So all these things, they come together to make a child. So parenting is just one bit of it. It's a bit of what affects a child, or what's the factors that, that will dictate who a child will become are very many. So parents would try, we would say the right things, we would do this and that. But there's so much that is competing with our voices as parents. So many competitions. So it is very important for us to realize that, because this is going to help parents to be very empathic. It's going to help our emotional intelligence. We're going to be able to handle things better. We will not measure our success by how much our children is doing, or how they are doing, how they've turned out. I've seen children from different walks of life, different backgrounds, that have ended up with a lot of problems. And then I've also seen, on the other hand, children who are born on the streets, who have just turned out to have done so well for themselves. Yeah. So it's very important for us to know this, so that parents are not beating themselves too much. They are not feeling extremely guilty that, oh, I haven't done this right. You might have done everything, but then you remember all these factors. What kind of temperament does this child have? What kind of genes has the child inherited? What are the kind of experiences that the child has had over time that has affected the child? And then the influence of social factors, the social media, the kind of friends, what kind of teachers have taught this child? What kind of words has the child received from school? What kind of support from the neighborhood? Those are all the things that will come together to affect the outcome of a child.
So it's a lot.
It's a whole lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a whole lot.
Okay, so parents, we can give ourselves a bit of grace, but
yes,
that doesn't.
We should. It doesn't mean we should. We continue to do what we are supposed to do as parents. Yes. But then we'll also remember all of this. So that's why within a family, you have, like Mrs. Atie said, you have 3 children. There is one that will be like the black sheep. You're just doing everything, and then it seems not to be able to comply with rules, with regulations. It just wants to do the opposite. So it's not so much of who the parents are. I mean, that might be, but then there's a whole lot that has come to affect that child. I've seen children of top pastors. We expect that things should naturally go well with our children, but then there's a lot of struggles within that space too. Some of their children are high flyers, they're doing so well, and then you have this one that is not doing so well. So it doesn't mean that they've not done what they're supposed to do, just that there are some other factors that has come to affect this child. So maybe as we go on, if I have the opportunity, I want to talk about the brain of children and adolescents, how it affects their outcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just put a little gloss,
Yes.
Because I agree with what Mrs. Adeniyi. So, the genes.
Yeah.
And, what I wanted to say is like, let me use myself as an example. Because, like I watch my little boy, and whenever I see some traits, some things, that were growing up. I mean, but I discuss it with my wife and we just have to address it. And I think, things like this are very important because, some things just trickle down naturally. We can arrest it, that's why we're spiritual people. So that's
Yeah.
why we have to pay attention. So I see more follower doing certain things and I'm like, no, you're like, affliction will not rise the second time, so, and I discuss it with my wife and we start praying about things like that, and I take it very seriously, so I'm saying this must pay whenever we see some negative traits, they're not meant to be there because, there's a funny thing about the propensity that it's not corrected, the way it's meant to be corrected, if there's no intervention in that regard.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yes, yes, it does. It does. And I guess it boils down to what you said again. And a few of you've all said, pay attention to your kids, pay attention to what they're doing, and try to arrest certain behaviors as soon as possible. Okay, I was going to ask, because we're talking about all these potential pitfalls, why do you think a lot of I know in our days, we also had people who were into drugs, who were into different types of addictions, pornography. But it seems to be, in fact, from what I understand, in Nigeria, for example, now there's an epidemic of young people taking drugs here too, in the United Kingdom and in America. In fact, when I was looking for statistics, and the 3 top countries that have a drug issue, I think Zambia, United States, Canada, and Nigeria have the greatest drug issue. But those are drugs is one, pornography is another, all sorts of addiction. Then social media influences. The other day I saw on social media, there's this guy called Dr. Prison who goes to help parents who are struggling with their kids. And it was a 9-year-old boy who was so addicted to pornography that he had stolen his parents' credit cards, and that's what he was using to pay to watch all these things. And the question was, how do our kids get into this thing? What can we do? Please, what should parents be aware of? What are the things that they should be looking out for? How do we even prevent this thing? I know we've talked about peer pressure. I mean, we can't be with them 24/7. And I know that a lot of the parents here are probably praying parents or aunties, uncles. But what can we do? Please help us as parents. Dr. Yetunde, you want to start us off? What can we do as parents?
Okay, thank you very much. So I will so I'll be talking a lot more from scientific point of view,
Okay.
so that at least we can balance things out, as we go on. So when children, when they are growing, there's a point that they get to that they have some part of their brain not growing as much as it should. I mean, it's natural, that's the way it is. The frontal part of the brain is the part that controls our impulses, our decision-making. We call it the executive functions. So in teenagers, which is the group that has the most problems when it comes to vices,
Okay.
it's not so well developed. It's actually worse developed in boys than in girls. So what that means is that they are really very tall, they're big, the muscles have developed, but that part of brain is not so developed. So they take a lot of decisions that are not thought through, that they take a lot of risks. They are adventurous, but then they are not able to analyze the risks that comes with the adventure. So many of the decisions that they are taking are things that can put them in trouble. or they end up being in danger, you know, if they are not well supervised and monitored. So that is there in terms of what is beyond their control, because their brain development is outside of what they can control. So it's not well developed in all kids. Okay. So, but then what would then make the difference is the kind of supervision that they get from parents, from the adults around them, not necessarily parents, because sometimes children are not under the care of their parents, but the adults that are in charge of looking after them. So it's very important for us to be aware of this, that the fact that you have a 16-year-old who is taller than you, you know, it's so big, and you want to talk to him, you have to look up and, you know, and all that. Doesn't mean that they are able to take the correct and the right decisions. So we need to be aware of that. And then to be able to follow through with whatever they are doing. We are all so very busy these days. Parents are extremely busy, which is not so much of what was happening in the past. There's a lot of competition. We need to meet up with finances. We need to meet up with our bills. We have so many things that we want to do. I'm in academics. I need to write papers. I need to publish. And so that's a lot of expectations from parents. So that gives limited time for parenting. So we need to be intentional about working with our children, especially when they are getting older. You know, when they were younger, they needed our physical presence. We need to change their diaper, you know, do all that. But at some point, we do, oh, you are old enough, you should be able to look after yourself. That is the time they actually need us actually more, because that is the time that they need to be able to take decisions. So we need to be present. We need to know what they are going through. Right. Now, the struggle that I see, you know, in my clinics or in my practice is that teenagers find it difficult to talk or discuss with their parents for so many reasons. For the reason that they are not going to understand me, they are going to judge me, they are going to say that, but I told you. They're going to say, oh, that is a spiritual attack. What you need is deliverance. What you need is, so they are not going to tell them so many things, because they are afraid that they are not going to get a pragmatic response from parents. They need practical steps. They need what to do when a friend comes to you to say, oh, try this thing. You'll not be sleeping well, or you've not been able to read. If you just take two or three pops, maybe it's going to help you. And then so they are thinking, who will I discuss this with? What would be the response of my mother or dad if I say a friend came to me with marijuana or with, you know, am I not going to say, oh, something's wrong with you, the devil has taken over your life and all that. So they're afraid of coming to speak with their parents. So they want to follow through with whatever it is. Okay, let's see how it goes. I'll just take it just once or twice and then I'll stop. But then when they start, they are not able to stop because of the fact that they have not thought through. Remember, I said their brain is not well developed to be able to do that. So we need to be our children's friends. They should be able to tell us things. And when they do, the first time, the second time, we should be practical about it. We should help them sit in a place of understanding and say, okay, I understand what you're going through. Let's see what is the best solution to this. That's not the time to, you know, bring out all our disciplinary power. And then we'll discipline, but then we also provide practical steps. We provide room for them to be able to come back and tell us things. So I think that's very important. Ability for parents to listen, be judgmental as much as possible, but then also be practical about solutions. I think that's very key. So
and I think thank you, Dr. Yetunde. I think what will also help when our children come to tell us these things, let's not react. You know, there are ways where a child comes to tell you about, I can't sleep, my friend gave me, it's like, yeah, what? And we start reacting, and that's to make them just shut up and not say anything. So we have to be able to put a calm face, even when you're shocked inside that, oh my goodness. But thank you for sharing that. Sis Jay, do you have anything else you want to contribute to this?
Yeah, we're just going to refer, based on what Yetunde was saying. There are books by Rob Parson, teenagers, what parents have to know. He talks about the scientific aspect of the development of a young person, and then talks about spiritual. Rob Parson's a well-known minister that runs parenting programs and does a lot of workshops. So that book would literally, what our sister was just talking about, that book will give you a proper breakdown. The other person that I would refer to is Erik Erikson. I think he's from Sweden. He's written about the development of children and temperament. These are things that I read after my children were like in their teenage. And then one thing I would say, attend parenting course. We ran parenting course in JH. There's a fantastic one called Strengthening Families, Strengthening Community. It used to be free, but it's now people are getting charged. And Rob Parson himself actually runs a parenting program. It just helps you in terms as a parent what to look out for and how best, like you were saying, when a child shares with you, this is what my kids used to share a lot of stuff with me of what their friends were up to or what they were exposed to. And I thank God they did, because it helped me to coach them how they should behave in those kind of environment. I think one of the key things as parents is to instill an identity for our children so they know who they are and who they represent. Even with the kids that I teach in JH, I always say to them, one, you're representing yourself, your parents, your school, whatever you are associated. When they see you, that's who you're representing. And first of all, you're representing yourself. What do you want to give out? What message are you sending out? You know, so they take ownership of some of the crazy decisions that their peers may want to force them to get involved with. And these are 11 to 13. And by that time, we should have built them up way earlier before that age, because the value we instill with them at a very younger age helps them to make those decisions when those temptation comes.
Absolutely. You know, personally, now I believe that, I mean, now I know better. I believe that when you're starting out as a parent, I believe we should all attend parenting classes, because the same way people attend premarital classes, I think it's the same way we should attend parenting classes, seriously, especially in today's world. And I agree about what you said about identity. In fact, in all the sessions that we've had previously, every single, most of the guest barristers have talked about identity, the kids knowing who they are and not having the world tell them who they are. Thank you for sharing that, Jay. Ogalek.
Yes, I just want to first of all echo what Sister Jay said about identity. It's so key. It's very critical, you know, because if at a very young age, we just teach our children, just to like imbibe that they are made in the image and likeness of God. I actually learned imago Dei, that concept, being made and created in the image and likeness of God. I mean, that kind of sits with them, and it just gives them a sense of worth, watch on that. But there's so many things I can, talk about here. Whenever you find children, doing drugs or, behaving in a dysfunctional way like this, they're usually, trying to fill a void. There's a void, something is missing, there's an absence of something. So we should always try and find out. For instance, I mean, we can be there like as parents, but it's also good for a child who is growing up to have a mentor, because, I reflect upon my life a lot. And I realized that one of the reasons I went on a frolic is because I never had a mentor. I just did whatever I wanted to do. And that was responsible. So, for instance, my son is 13. Have in one of the young ushers, who is like a mentor, not even like a mentor, who is a mentor. They have time together and they go out, So whilst we're doing ours, he's doing his. He's been mentored in Kids First as well. And also to be intentional, we have to have some difficult conversations, right from a very young age, talk about these things, let our children know that, look, it's actually cool to say no. It's actually cool to follow Jesus. It's like the coolest thing out there, to follow Jesus and not follow the crowd. We need to discuss these things. And we also need to discuss the consequences of, doing these things, how some people are never even, are not able to come out of it. So you're better not even going there. For like some of us who, like experimented, it just took a strong hand of God. But I also know a lot of people who didn't make it, So we need to put that fear in them too, that look, it's not just something, it's a no-go area, So when we talk about like dangers, it just puts the fear, that real actual fear, and you let them know that, look, if you go down this line, God forbid, you're going to throw your life away. Then also another thing that Dr. Yetunde said, is to create that, we need to create that safe space, so that even when things are going wrong, our children are confident enough to come and discuss it with us, and we just sit down, say, okay, let's talk about it, what can we do? As opposed to, you just shouting and, being, so all of these things. But we also have to look out, we want to look for the traits, if a children is being erratic, we want to look out for it.
That was actually going to be my next
I mean,
question. That what are the things to look out for?
Yeah. We can actually pick on these things, I mean, someone like me can pick on these things, when I see some behavioral patterns, I'm able to say, well, man, I have insight, so I can tell, so even if you didn't have that kind of experience,
tell us, what are some of the things to
I mean, there's so many books out there, there's so many things that we can read, for instance, if a child, I mean, we all know about red eyes, if your eyes are constantly red and you're just trying to be shifty and you're trying to hide, if your child is eating a lot, if your child is coming in and out of the house, if you're just being shifty, there's so many things, there are so many signs, behavioral patterns that are not, I mean, in conformity with what is right, for want of a better way to put it, So there's so many things, that one can look out for, So, and once we sense these things, I mean, we just need to talk about it. We need to look for help. We need to pray, but look for help, look for counseling, and discuss it, And well,
okay,
so
so many things to unpack.
there are a lot of things,
So many things. So I was going to say, and let me just talk, then you can answer. Dr. Yetunde can answer afterwards. So one thing I want to say is are parents in denial? Because sometimes, especially Christian parents, we try to, and this honestly, I agree with prayer. There's nothing God cannot do. But I think sometimes we try to cover a lot of things with prayer, or we deny things, where the kid might be, you might see some of these things, and instead of having a conversation, you're rebuking the devil and not having that conversation with your child. And then also what you said about how the kids get involved in, so Frank, let me give you an example. So smoking weed nowadays is so common. It's for them, it's almost like smoking cigarettes, because they don't think about the consequences. But one child, at least I know one child who took weed for the first time and went crazy. Then the other people who they're taking it, maybe it might take a while, but from what at least a bit of the research that I took, it says that the long-term consequences of taking this thing, and Lekan, you will probably know, taking all these things, that it does a lot of damage to the body. Well, we don't have these conversations. Now, talking about, you also said having these conversations and talking about the consequences. Last week, the young adults that were here, one of them, Solomon, talked about how his mother sat him down and actually had a presentation of the consequences of, if you have sex, you can catch STD, you can do it. And I thought that was brilliant. But one thing I think I've also learned from these conversations we're having is that we need, even when we have the conversations with our kids, we need to keep repeating them. So you don't just have one-off conversation about don't do this and then think they will imbibe it. Because even like Dr. Yetunde said, the kids, their brains are not fully developed. So it may take you repeating it a few times before they the thing sinks in. But so yes, Dr. Yetunde, you were going to say something.
So I think that children will learn better when things are practical.
Okay.
So there's a lot of assumption that they understand a lot of things. So we're talking to them like we talk to our spouses, we talk to our colleagues. We are saying all of these things, but then we are not providing practical steps. So I think it's very important that parents are equipped with, what do you do when you face, we've told them, don't do drugs, don't engage in premarital sex. What do they do when they are fixed, when they are actually in the middle of taking that decision? How do they navigate those difficult moments?
Yeah,
we need to talk to them about those moments. They're very important. Are you in a place where your child can come to you to say, a boy asked me out today, or last week, or is that the kind of conversation you can have with your child, and then you should be comfortable to come to you. So those are very important. And the other thing is that we can always seek professional help. If you ask your son or your daughter to see a professional, it doesn't mean that you failed as a parent, because there are ways that professionals will handle stuff. There are ways that they'll be able to speak to the child that you might not be able to. There are things that they might be able to unpack or discuss that you might not be able to. It's not because you're not adequate as a parent, just because you're not trained or you don't have that skill to do it. So if you notice things that you're worried about, you've done a couple of things and it seems that it's not getting better, you can ask for a professional help for your son. In the last 1 or 2 years, I've seen a lot of people coming out to say, please help my son, or help my in fact, some of them might not even like serious issues, might just be sudden withdrawal or gradual withdrawal from the family. They just want to be in their room. It might be nothing. Some of them might just be like they're teenagers, they're just at that stage, but then parents are genuinely worried and they say, can you please talk to my son or talk to my daughter? This is what we've noticed. And then I will say, oh, don't worry, it's just a phase, you'll be fine. Or, oh, be worried, something serious is going on. So I think it's important that we remember that there are people that we can talk to, or we can ask our children to talk to, that they will be able to help. There are things that we might not be able to say to them because we are their parents, or they might not be able to tell you because you are their parents, but they'll be able to tell some other persons, that will be helpful to them. So I think we need to be present. We need to be practical. We also need to remember that there are professional help out there. Thank you.
So, thank you so much, Dr. Yetunde. So parents should not be afraid to seek for help. And
They shouldn't.
they shouldn't, yes. And even if you can't talk, get them a mentor. I'm particularly also worried now about, and Dr. Lekan, okay.
He's a professor.
He's a professor, okay, Professor Lekan. Now, I don't know about Nigeria, but here the law has changed a lot in terms of what rape is. And I'll explain this. So a lot of our children, they go into university. Some of them are away for the first time, and they're having sex. Now, what we found is that some of them are having sex, and then the ladies they have the sex with now turn around and say that they didn't consent.
They were raped.
And they were raped. Now, the law here now says, and Lekan can contribute to this, that even if she agreed at the first time, and later on, at that point, she says, or at any point, if I'm correct, she says no, you'll be charged with rape. So what can we do? How do we educate our kids? How do we help them not to even go there? And I don't know if it's the same. I mean, I don't know if there's any lawyer here from Nigeria, if the same thing applies in Nigeria, but here, and this thing is happening a lot. Lekan, please speak into this.
Yes. Well, I think this issue is very important, and yes, I was going to talk about it, and we just want to bring a warning. It's a warning, to our children, because you know, going into university, you see, they're young, you know, and we know that yes, you know, they've got hormones raging, and young children will be young children. But the danger is, and because of my profession, you know, I've been privy to a lot of cases. I've had cases, you know, so you have young children and they're fooling around and they're having a good time. And one thing always leads to another, you know. And usually it may start with consent. And usually there is consent, you know, there's consensual you know, fooling around, you know, let me put it like that, you know. But that consent might be withdrawn anytime suddenly, you know, and once it is withdrawn, anything that you do thereafter becomes an offense. You know, I'm just putting it in a very mild way. Hey, you know, I mean, look, I've had people who have been accused of rape, you know. These are people that they met one another and they wanted to get together and they wanted to have sex, you know, and there was consent, you know, but, you know, at some point, the girl just says, so let's think about it, you know. So you are in the heat of passion, you know, and somebody says stop. Are you going to be able to stop right away? I think not. So anything that you do thereafter, it becomes rape. So that's why it's very dangerous, you know. So, you know, the best advice is, look, there's plenty of time for it, you know. And I know that is hard, you know, they're young, you know, but we just have to keep teaching these things, you know. When you marry, then you have all the time in the world to have all the sex, you know. It's actually cool. The best, you know, way of, I mean, you know, the way to preserve yourself is by saying no, no. And there's another scenario that happens, you know, I mean, you know, the girl is happy, they've had sex and everything. Then she just goes and she recounts that experience with her friends, you know, and and she just heard something, you know, and she now feels remorseful, or maybe she gets dogged out by her friend or even parents. So she now, you know, so she now turns around and she cries rape. I've seen that happen a lot. I mean, I've done cases like that. So we've got, you know, we've just got to tell our children, you know, I mean, no, don't even get sucked into it, you know. I mean, even when you're fooling around and you say, you know, I mean, just ask for permission, but the best way is just to avoid it, is to just run, flee all appearances of evil. I mean, you know, like our children, they are being charged with sexual offenses. And once you have a baggage like that at a very young age, it just stays with you. And nobody really needs that. So I want to bring this as it's a warning, and it's a serious warning, and it's rampant and it's happening in our midst, you know. So we just got to put the fear of God in our children, you know. I mean, you know, you will graduate university, you will meet the love of your life, and you can have all the sex you want, you know. But right now, you know, the best thing that you can do to yourself is just say no so that you don't, you know. Anyway, I think
I remember in secondary school, one of our teachers used to say that this sex that you guys want to have, you would, when you get married, there will be a time when you will not even want to have it at all. So,
yes.
but someone, you know, this thing that you just said about the fear of God. Someone just put a comment in the chat box saying, creating fear can make them become rebellious later when they discover the truth. Dr. Yetunde, do you agree with that? As from your
So
yes.
I tried to actually reply to Taiwo, and then so when I'm thinking that when Lekan was talking about that fight, I wasn't referring to not saying the truth. So that's why I responded that you tell them the truth, but then you also let them know the consequences of not following up with the truth. Because once you are deviating from what is right, is appropriate, there are consequences. And so when you are telling them all that, it might appear like it's something terrible, or oh, this is I'm so it's fearful or something. But there's not, the intention is not to create fear. Is to let them know that there are things, there are expectations, there are things that you're supposed to do. Once you're not doing that, you're moving away from it, there are consequences that might be detrimental to life. So
Okay.
fear might come, but then there's also the truth. So you have to be able to say at every point that this seems to be the truth, even though I'm going away from it. So that is something that we need to let them know. So they might be afraid, it's okay. They might be fearful, it's okay. But then they should also know the truth as much as possible.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Sis Jay, do you have anything to say before we move on?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just catching up back on signs. And it might not just be for signs of drugs. It could be a sign that your child is involved with is involved in sexual relationship. I was straight with my kids. I told them my experience. And then I said to them, I know you're going to go to nightclub. If you're drinking, don't leave your drink around. It will be laced. And then they can take advantage. Don't go to a boy's house on your own. Always make sure there's companions that you have, especially those people that you are accountable to. And then for parents, the things we could see is mood swing. I know when they go into their teenager, average British kid, they don't even say a word. They just grump at you. You're thinking, what child is this? Notice the changes between the excitement, the anger, or hostility and depression. If they're lying and stealing or sneaking out, those are things to do. My kids had a saying, they were like, forget it, it's not worth it. Mom knows too many people. There's always someone that's going to see me. So that was like the stuff that put boundaries for them. But they still broke some rules. They found themselves, my daughter was sharing a house and with four other girls. One girl invited all these roadmen, that's the only word I can think to call them. And one of the girls was sexually abused.
Wow.
But they made sure she'd been pumped with alcohol. And that was a trauma for my daughter. Do you understand? So you would find that it may not be your child, but those around your child. So it's important that you make friends. I'm friends with my children's friends' parents. I've got friends they've known from when they were 3 years old.
Yeah.
I'm still friends with their parents till today because they know I'm going to make friends. I'm going to, and you want to sleep over? I want to sleep over there too. Because sleepover is another place, especially for those with younger children, your child will be exposed. The things my kids used to share with me that their friends had experienced going to sleepover. I used to, from when they were in primary, so it has to be age appropriate to educate your child the things to look for. And you as a parent being sensitive, understanding your child. I have two different children. One is very quiet, likes her space, plays on her own from when she was a child. The other one, the whole of England have to pray with her. Everybody has to be around her. We were talking about weddings. We said, yeah, we know what's going to happen with her wedding. And we know your one, you're going to go abroad and no one's going to be invited. That's how, and it's 31 and 29. As parents, we have a responsibility, to just be watching. And it's never too late. It's never too late as a parent. Even when they're adults, you can be praying, just the areas you've messed up in, be praying, or even your own personal experience. You pray your children do not, as Brother Lekan was saying, the enemy does not repeat that pattern. What you've experienced when you become sensitive, or you suspect this is what could possibly happen. Just my kids know what I pray. Anyone that will take you astray, you will be enemies with them. And any place you're going that you're not supposed to, you'll be miserable. Sometimes they plan to go to nightclub. The Uber driver kicked them out of the out of the Uber halfway. They got another cab to go to a club. They got to the club. They were locked out. They came back so quick with their friends, about 4 of them. They were like, Mom, have you been praying? I said, I didn't pray. I just said God's will be done. So as parents, we have so much authority that we don't know. Yes, the media has influence. Yes, they're friends. But you'll be amazed the things you've said to your child. Your child will take it in. And by the time they get into uni, all those things, they will now be using it and advising their friends. So as parents, don't give up. At the end of the day, you're the one with the authority. You're the one with the power that God has given, and that child is your child.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing that. What can parents do if they find out that their kids are already involved in this thing, in all these things that we're talking about? And again, social media, gaming, they're addicted to it, the influences from social media. What can parents do? Because there are parents here that maybe some of their kids are into all these things. What are practical things that they can do? Anyone?
I think for one, you can plan intervention.
Okay.
An intervention
Plan,
can,
what do you mean by that? What does
yeah,
it? Yeah, go on.
intervention can, it can entail like approaching, the child
Okay.
and having a sit down to like seriously talking about it, and not just talking about it. As you're talking about it, I mean, that's when, you are sure that this is going on. So you're talking about it, but you are also, proffering solutions, so this is what we are going to do. These are the steps that we are going to take. That's intervention, just confronting it head on. There's so many, I mean, there's a lot of help out there, so
if
it just
if you
depends.
find out that if someone finds out that their child is addicted to weed, marijuana, or any one of these drugs, or pornography, or gaming, I heard of children where they're so addicted, because they're addicted to gaming, they can't focus on anything else, because they're just, because of that constant thing with gaming. So what can they do? Where can they, if okay, maybe, I don't know if you know somewhere where they can go to help the children.
For instance, if you become addicted to drugs, let me say drugs.
Yes.
Back in the day, man, out there, there's Narcotics Anonymous, there's Alcoholic Anonymous, right? It worked for some people, but it didn't work for some people, I mean,
You
there's
had a
something that
divine
I always,
encounter.
sorry?
I said it didn't work for you. Did it work for
No,
you?
it didn't work for me. No, it didn't. I mean, I went through a lot of those and it never worked, So I always say, what you need, and it's not, we're not being religious, it's a spiritual problem anyway, whenever you find yourself doing anything like that, it's a spiritual problem, and it's not, I mean, it's a spiritual problem. So you actually need, the Jesus kind of intervention, that's what you need, you just need you need Jesus, you just need to surrender your life, you just, need to accept Jesus and embrace the new life in Jesus. Because,
Some people might
for
actually,
instance,
but Professor Lekan, some people might actually need to go through the process though, of going
what
into,
process?
as in they might need to go into rehab and all of that.
Rehabilitation. Well, I mean, you see, I cannot knock rehabilitation. There are different kinds of rehabilitation. And, there's a place for rehabilitation, Jesus is part of that rehabilitation as well. Even if you go, I mean, when you talk about the 12 steps and all that, step one always talks about my life has become unmanageable and I'm not able to live my life. So if you say that your life has become unmanageable and, and you are giving, that there's a higher power, that you are submitting to, but they call it higher power. What is that higher power? We call that higher power Jesus.
Yeah.
So I'm advocating Jesus. It works for some people, but for some people too, it's a revolving door. You keep going through, the 12 steps recommended, and you're always in and out of it, in and out of it. The only person that can really rescue you is, you just need deliverance, redemption, from Jesus Christ. That's my take. Yeah. But some people have gone through the 12 steps and they made it. But I know a lot of people that didn't make it. Most people don't even make it. It's in and out, in and out. It's a revolving door.
Thank you
for
so
most
much.
people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Almost. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Yetunde.
Can I comment? Okay.
Yes, please.
So I absolutely agree that it is a spiritual problem, but I also know that it is a medical problem. Any form of addiction, it's a medical problem. There is a part of the brain that is malfunctioning at that moment. So there's some things that we refer to as neurotransmitters in our brain. They help us to carry messages back and forth our brain. So when people have addiction, it shows that there is a problem with that pathway. One of them is called dopamine. So the dopaminergic pathway is faulty.
Okay.
So there are steps to manage addiction, different kinds of addiction. But then because we're talking about children and adolescents mostly, or talking about our children who are likely going to be younger, there are things that we can do as parents. If an adult has an addiction problem, it might be a bit different. But for children and for adolescents and for young people, we need to stand for them because at that moment, they are completely not able to help themselves. So the first thing is that we need to take on practical. I will always talk about practical steps. It's very crucial. For example, if you have a child who has a problem with gaming, the first thing that you want to do is to take away that thing that the child is addicted to. Now that might be like it might be a lot for that family to handle because you have a child who cannot do any other thing apart from just sitting in front of the computer or with the phone and all that. You might need to take those practices or taking away those things. What that means is that you have to be present because if you just take it away and you're not following through, it's very easy for them to get back to it. So you have also be ready to deprive yourself of doing and all that, and then to insist that this is professional because addiction, like I said, is like when people have hypertension, when they have diabetes, when they have sickle cell disease. We take practical steps. We take them to see professionals. So we need to also do that because they will require counseling. They will require some kind of help to help. I remember I said that there's something that has gone wrong with the functioning of the brain. They need somebody to help them. Now there might be a need for medications to help with whatever it is that is going on. There are substitute medication, for instance, for things like tobacco, for marijuana and all that. We need to bring in all of that to help this child holistically, not to just say the only thing we want to do is to pray. We're going to pray, it's good, but then we also need to help because it's a physical problem. It's something that we can see where it's coming from. So we need to also bring in all of this. There are some that will, with those little help, will be able to adjust with continuous because it's something that could reoccur because it's a chronic problem. So it could come back. Even when they are starting to show signs that they are getting better, if we don't follow through, they might come back. They might start to have the problem again. So we need to also help them with counseling, with psychological support, with prayers. We have to bring everything together. Not just going to say, this is the only thing we need to do, go for deliverance and all that. It might work for a couple of people, but for majority, they will need a combination of all of this to be able to help, especially when we're talking about children and adolescents. I want to just quickly talk about a couple of things that parents get unduly worried about. But then in terms of whether it's a medical problem or not, one of it is pornography viewing. Now, I know that because we are coming from a religious point of view and all that, it's something that parents get so worried about. Now, the statistic is very staggering. It's alarming, actually. So I think that one of the ways to, first of all, to help children is to know that you as a parent have not done anything out of place to make a child want to watch pornography because it's one of the adventures. It's one of the things that their brain wants to do. The brain is saying, there's something behind this thing. I need to check what it is. That's what the brain is dictating to them. So it's nothing that you have done or you didn't do.
Okay.
So you have to be able to, be calm within, because if you are so worked up and you're worried and you're beating yourself over it, you're not going to be able to help the child. So you need to be able to ask questions. You need to be calm enough to listen to how it started, how did they get to know about it, what have they done, and all of that. But I can tell you from my professional point of view, it takes a whole lot. If you've identified that your child watches pornography and you said, oh, don't do it again, he said, oh, yes, I will. It takes a whole lot for them not to go back to it. They might just devise ways of not get caught. They don't want you to catch them, so they look for other ways to do it. So first of all, you have to then identify that maybe it's something that is beyond what you have done or you didn't do, and then it requires that you take all necessary precautions as much as possible. But it doesn't mean that because you caught a child watching pornography, it means that the child is bad or or something terrible has happened. It's just a phase that you need to help the child to navigate. It might actually be a stepping stone for you to help them in terms of sex education, in terms of talking about things around sex. If you use that cleverly and in a way that it can help them. There is no diagnosis in medicine that will put a child who watches pornography as a medical problem. There is none. It's just an adventure, except there are other things that have come in with it, maybe depression or some other problems. That's when we now start to say, okay, maybe they'll need a medication. But I just want us to know that some of these things are a whole lot more from our brain as parents, from our moral standing, of this is right, this is not right, I just want to add on to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yetunde. And it's I think it was about a few years ago, my hairdresser was telling me about how a 6-year-old girl, came into the salon with her mom, and she now gave her, the child was, they wanted to keep her, the way you want to keep children quiet. So my hairdresser gave her her phone to play a game on. She actually put the game up for her. But they now noticed that she and the girl's mom noticed that the girl was quiet. And they were like, what's this girl watching that she's unnecessarily quiet? So they got the phone from her, and you won't believe it, a 6-year-old child, she was watching pornography on the phone. So my hairdresser said, the first thing she said to the mom was, I don't watch it. I don't know how she got into this site that she was watching pornography. So anyway, they talked to her. The mom, apparently, thank God, she was calm, and she said, how did you know what to get into? So she said on one of her play dates that she's been to a few times, that someone else there had taught her how to get into the sites. And I couldn't believe, I was like, a 6-year-old. Now, God knows how long she's been doing it for. She's been watching it. It was so alarming for me anyway. But I know that there are probably other ages where people are getting into this thing. But part of it, I might be wrong, but you as guest baristas, please correct me. Part of it is letting our children have access to devices without supervision. I think we need to, get into their business more than we used to than before. Because we're just giving them all these devices, and it's unsupervised. What do you think? And please, audience, please let us know what you think. And if you have more questions, please put them in the question box. Yes. What do you think?
I think
All right.
What you've said is true. A lot of children have access to information that they shouldn't be having. It's a statement that I make in church when I'm teaching the children, that this generation has so much information that it's dangerous for them. It's not age appropriate, it's not being supervised. And as parents, like you said, we should be mindful. I could only use my kids as an example. I got them what's called a trap phone. A trap phone is what drug dealers use. there is no social media access. You could only make calls or texts when they were little. And I remember them
Yeah,
complaining,
yeah,
oh, this one has this. I said, that one, they can have it. That's their house. In this house, these are the phones that we're going to use. And you only use it to text me, to let me know so I can pick you up. So parents have a lot more power to manage that. And two, just sit with them. I got to know all the Disney programs, all the even Beverly Housewife, all those things, because my kids watch it and I want to watch what they're watching, and then we'll have a discussion about, okay, what do you think you benefited from that? What, what have you learned? What moral value? I try not to come from the spiritual aspect because they will now argue, oh, everything is spiritual. I said, okay, moral value, because they like that word. What have you gained from that? And for those parents whose children are already caught up in addiction, there's several agencies. There's one called Step by Step, similar to AA, for rehab, and there's TLC rehab, Banbury, Gladstone. If you Google it, there are loads of agencies that would provide that support for you. And I think one of the key things is, don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed. I think sometimes as Africans, or should I say ethnic minorities, we tend to be embarrassed. Ask other parents. When my stepson was with us, he was just playing this game till early hours of the morning, 4 o'clock. This kid will be on it. And I've sat with him. I'm like, Anton, what are you getting from this? Because it keeps me occupied. And then I spoke to another sister who in church. I said, I don't have boys. This is the first one that I've had in my house, and he's come as a teenager, already prepared, package. How do I approach him with this game? And she told me her experience with her son. Then and I spoke to my neighbor's nephew, who I've known from when he was little, and I spoke about this whole issue with the games. And he said to me, oh, don't worry, Auntie, he would stop playing it sooner or later. And then the parents said to me, because of the area they were from, that game actually saved her son's life. Because if her son was going out, her son would have got involved with drugs and would have been killed. So can you see the crazy balance that it makes? But I think, like you said, communicating with our children, watching what they watch, and then talk to them, discuss it. In the end, this boy suddenly gave up that game, was focusing so much on his GCSE. Me, I was now concerned that, you're reading too much. Oh, are you not having any break? From one extreme to the other. And he always said to me, when I'm ready to give you up, I will give you up. And one day, he
He
just
gave it up.
decided that's it. So every child is different. And I think he's using different methods to help to support that child and to speak to them and to encourage them, and find out from other parents, find out from organizations that could support, so you will know the right approach for that particular child.
Okay, thank you so much. Before we go in, someone sent me a private message, and the person is asking for help. So I'll read it. My son is addicted to pornography. We have talked and talked, and he persists. We know this because he keeps a roll of tissue by his bed. We have threatened to throw him out, but he says he's not harming anyone. He also says we won't follow him to uni, and he's 18 and an adult. We don't know what to do. He goes to church and is a good boy, but pornography is tearing us apart. Any advice for us parents? We found out because we noticed the sheets were stained and raised it up, and then he started putting rolls of tissue by his bed. We pray as parents, but when we go into his room, we see all the rolls of tissues by his bed. Please advise this parent. What can they do? Dr. Yetunde,
Okay.
yes, go.
Yes. So because the family seems to be very worried about this, I would advise that they seek professional help. Okay. However, I want to ask this person what the functioning level of this boy is, the different levels of functioning in terms of academic, in terms of social, in terms of relationship. Are they concerned about this? Because these are some of the things that are going to be asked in therapy or during the professional assessment. Because things that we do that apart from, so I'm, I said I'm going to be talking as a scientist,
Yes.
I will allow Lekan and to be talking at the spiritual level, but I want to be talking, I'm also a very spiritual person, but I want to just play the devil's advocate today.
That's fine, thank you.
So we look at the activities and behaviors in terms of how they affect our functioning in life. So there are some things that we do. For instance, we have some parents who take alcohol on, some even take it every day, but then it doesn't affect any part of them. They are great husbands, they're fantastic. They're doing well in terms of their career, they're great people, how they are in the community, but then they take alcohol. So we don't measure them by the fact that they take alcohol. So if you have a child, I know that I've said it, we are distraught. I'm going to be most likely be distraught or happy if I see my child in that situation. But then we have to be a little bit, take a step back and then be a little bit objective about it. What exactly are we worried about pornography? What is it that we are concerned so much about? If you have a child who is doing well in school, who has a great relationship with his friends, with his family, who is doing so well out there, why are we so worried about pornography, about him? So we need to have a balance. But like I said, that if a mother she's clearly very worried, that's why she's sending that private message, she can seek professional help and then let them talk to the boy and all that. But I'm certain if she's going to give us a feedback, these are the kind of questions they're going to ask her. What exactly are you worried about? If she says, oh, my child is, because of that, she doesn't want to go to school, she doesn't want to relate with people, then I'll be so, oh, clearly there's a problem. So I think that she needs to seek for professional help. I agree with her because of her level of anxiety and all that, but then she should also be ready to provide this information when she gets there. Thank you.
Okay, the person has come back to say, I don't know whether it's a woman, to say that the boy is very clever and says he's not harming anyone and that it's pretty normal for boys to masturbate.
So because they found traces, that's why they're worried, Abby.
Yeah.
I told you that
it seems to be he's very clever, he's going to uni, so yeah.
Yeah, the statistics is very high. The fact that some children, we've not found some children with it, doesn't mean they don't do it. And I'm saying that many children do this, but then it's not harmful to them. It's not harmful to anybody.
So you're saying that, Dr. Yetunde, so you're saying it's only when it's preventing them from doing normal
functioning.
From functioning.
That's when it becomes a problem scientifically. I'm not, I said I'm coming from that angle. Scientifically, that's when it becomes a problem. When they can't, because I've seen that level also, when they can't function well, it's affecting their academic performance, it's affecting their relationship within the family. They just want to be in their room, they don't want to interact with anybody. Clearly, that's a problem. But when that is not what is happening, we are projecting our own worries.
Okay, Dr. Yetunde again, sorry.
Can I dive in a little bit?
Sorry?
Yes, sir.
Can I dive in a little?
Come back to you. So, two people have put in, pornography is said to have the same impact on the brain as class A drugs, as well as the impact on the future ability of the person to be intimate with a partner. Also, I know this person is a GP, she said, a doctor too. She said the consequences of pornography, such as leading to poor relationships with members of the opposite sex, all of that. Yeah.
Okay.
That is true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shall I go or you?
Yes, go on.
Okay. So I agree with that. Okay, as findings from studies. But I'm also saying that with the amount or with the rate of children and people, so there was a Google mapping that was done per time. And it was found that per every time, there were so many spots of people on pornography sites. Actually, the most visited site in the whole world has to be pornography sites. So we have so many people. Now, sometimes when we have children or adolescents who are into this, our worry, like I said, is the worry that we have as parents. So if we are to say that people who are addicted in quote to pornography might have problems when they grow up as husband or as wife, we are likely going to have like a whole lot of problems based on the amount of adolescents and children who are visiting pornography sites. So the way to measure whether behavior is a problem is to look at, that's if we look at the WHO definition of mental health, mental wellness of health, is the ability to function well mentally, socially, spiritually, academically when it comes to children, and so on. That is the definition of mental wellness. So if we have a child who has all of
Can
this.
I touch on it a little bit?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go on.
Can I touch on this? Well, I mean, my take is different. You know, pornography is very dysfunctional. You know, there is nothing good about it. Yeah. But I know that, you know, as children, or most people, even adults, they find themselves, you know, in that realm. Now, where it becomes really problematic is, you know, and you know, you might say that I'm being overly spiritual, but I'm not, you know. So the kingdom of darkness controls this realm, you know, pornography, and it doesn't just happen. You see, there are certain things behind pornography. There are, you know, there are people who are actors in that industry, you know. They're into drugs, they're into the occult, they're into all kinds of things, you know. So when you engage in pornography, you expose yourself and you open yourself to a demonic world, and that is the truth of the matter. You know, there's some things I can't talk about here, you know. So when we see situations like that, yes, there might be some clinical things that need to be addressed, you know, but also it's I mean, you know, it's a deeply spiritual thing that has lasting consequences, you know, on marriage, on the soul of the person, on so many things, you know.
Yeah.
But it's just, I mean, it's one of the ploys of Satan, and it's easily what scares me the most is that it is so, I mean, you know, it's a thin line, you know. I mean, with, you know, with social media and access, you know, you can, I mean, you can be watching, you can be on your phone and you turn something and you just see something that you didn't even, you know, I mean, you don't know how it got there. That's how bad it is, you know. So I'm always concerned about my boy, you know, what are you watching? You know, I want to see everything because, you know, they can be faced with, and once you are thrown into that sick, you know, that dysfunctional space, you know, I mean, it's just
Lekan, this parent that has reached out to us, so what
Mhm.
advice will you give the parent?
I think we need serious counseling. You know, you just need to sit with people who have gone through that, and a lot of people, even, you know, even leaders in church, you know, that have gone through that experience and have come out of it. You know, so we need meaningful counseling. You know, we're not being judgmental, but we just want to sit them down and just help them and point them to, you know, some things that they can do to just come out of it. You know, but it's a dangerous place to be. You know,
Can I get this
yeah.
parent to reach out to you then?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a problem with pornography, but yeah, you know, I can assist. Yes, yes, I can assist in that regard.
Or maybe for them to
So
seek a
yes,
therapist.
I
I
can.
think
Yeah,
Dr.
yes,
Yetunde
I
said
can.
so,
Yeah.
like, to reach out to seek it. Correct. Okay. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to add to what Lekan was saying. It's important that we do see these things from the spiritual aspect. Yes, there's the scientific support. What he just mentioned, in the spirit realm, that child is exposed. That's the reality. And the impact in future, we don't know what the impact would be. I'll give an example. At the age of 19, I ended up pregnant and I ended up having an abortion. Getting an abortion was very, very easy, but nobody ever told me spiritually what that impact would be. And I walked around with this thing till I was 30 something years old. I would remember the date, I would remember the room, and I would have vision of this whole thing. And I had to share that with my children. And I share it with the older children that I work with that are involved in sexual relationship. And the joke was my first one, my first relationship, first so-called boyfriend when I went to college after leaving school. And it's something we need to educate our children when that these things, especially those going to uni, I'm very, very concerned about our children that are going to uni. I think we should have a whole session on sex, drugs, because that's where they have that independent, no supervision, going in and going out. And not only that, these things, one of the three things Satan used, and we can see it in the Bible right across, sex is one of his biggest things. Pride is another thing that he uses. We need to educate our children about these things and not just. I have a very close family member that was, as a teenager, this is what he was caught doing. And he had specks of blood, him and his friend. And when I was told, I'm not going to lie, I had a meltdown privately. Then I had to speak to him on how we can address this issue. Today, he's a wonderful young man. And even the young man that they were kids. I think they were in primary school or just in secondary school. But to the glory of God, with prayer and with counseling, I've seen him turn around. Even with my stepson, those are the things with my girls. Those were the things that were in my head because they live in a society that say, yeah, it's all right. If it feels good, do it. But we know that's a lie. And we need to educate our children from, especially as Christians, from the spiritual aspect. And that parent, I believe God has already delivered your child. You're waiting for the manifestation physically in Jesus' name. The fact that you've seen it, God have allowed you to see it. You've prayed about it and you've called out, and God is faithful. He's a God that answered prayer. I'm not dismissing what our sisters telling us. Yes, don't panic. Hand him over to God. Because like he said to you, he's going to go to uni. You're not going to be there. But that's the confidence he has.
Cut off now.
To me, that's the confidence he has in terms of that lifestyle. And there's the part of educating him spiritually that this is what it could lead to. Yes, he's not distracted now. When he gets to uni, we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I think I worry about the long term.
Okay.
Sorry, Dr. Snell, now just saying, I worry about the long-term effects of this thing on the children because it can actually create and I think a few people have said this, unrealistic expectations about relationships, sexual relationships, body image, intimacy, and it can lead to dissatisfaction when they actually get married, dissatisfaction, real life relationship.
Make believe.
Yes. And it can also erode trust, communication, and intimacy in a relationship. So those are my worries with this thing. But Dr. Yetunde, go on.
Yeah, so thank you very much. So I was talking from my day-to-day experience with young people, with couples. So when children are growing, there are a whole lot of things that affect how they view intimacy, how they view relationship. One key factor is the relationship between their parents or between the adults in their lives.
Okay.
So when I'm talking to couples about problems that they have, I don't see so much of pornography issues coming up. I see them referring to how they have viewed their father relating to their mother as a problem, how they've viewed events around them that are traumatic to them as an impact on how they live as adults. I know that, like I said, pornography is a big issue. It's a whole lot of discussion about morality, about spirituality. It's fine. But there are a whole lot of other factors that we need to pay attention to when we are raising our children. How do we relate with our spouses? How do we relate with our partners? How do we treat them in the presence of our children? Because that is something, they are learning, the ropes, just looking at us. Those are very important things that we need to
In
put
fact,
into consideration.
Dr. Yetunde, you're so right. Because
Yes.
I was going to ask this, someone asked this question, and the question was, I want us to look at how cooperation between husband and wife can influence purposeful parenting. So I guess that's what you answer, the question you
Yes.
answered.
And some of the things that we see when a child is into so much of pornography, we need to look at other things. What kind of experience is this child having in that home? What kind of
Someone
treatment
said
is
that,
she
is it
getting? Are there
possible that
other
the
issues?
yes,
Are there
someone
other issues
actually
we need
said
to...
that, is it possible that the child was also abused, sexually abused?
Absolutely. So we need to look at a whole lot of that. Is it the child depressed? Are the parents having issues? Are they at the verge of separation? Are they having major breakdown? Those are things that we need to look into. So pornography might just be like a reflection of what this child is going through. It might not just be the problem. So we need to look deeper and ask further questions about this child.
Okay, thank you so much. Oh my goodness, we've spent almost 2 hours. You know, each episode that we have, we always go away thinking there is so much more that we haven't covered. And I think it was Professor Lekan that said something about, we could talk about the sex pornography thing for, it could be a whole session on its own. Someone just put in a very practical approach to pretend to, or ask to watch a session with the young person when they're watching pornography, and that would be the beginning of a conversation on why it cannot be something to be proud of. But let me ask one more question. But thank you so much. You've been amazing guest barristers. God bless you. And I don't know if we're going to have more sessions on this, but we haven't even scratched the surface. Okay, because we don't have a lot of time, let me ask one question. What's the last thing you will say to parents here on how to protect and how to guide their children in today's world? What should they be doing? I know some of them maybe things that you mentioned before, but what would your advice be to parents? So it could be young parents, it could be teenagers, or those going to uni. Just give us one advice, point them in the right direction. What should be their takeaway?
All right, so I think they should start early. Parents should start early to be be friends to their children. It's very important. It's difficult as they grow older. So start early if you still have the opportunity. If your children are grown, it's never too late. You can still be their friends. And then don't shy away from asking for help. So seek help as you deem necessary. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yetunde. Jay?
Similar to what Yetunde has said, communicating with your kids, especially when they've left home, when they're in uni, just increase that. So it's a regular call, a regular conversation. That way they would tell you what's happened every day or the day before if you miss it. Pray and pray and pray for the right relationships and pray against the wrong relationship, because that's key. My older one's quiet. So when she went to uni, she looked like she was fine. It was in February. Everybody cried in September, October. This one started crying in February that she wants to quit. I said, everybody have settled. Why now? I'm struggling to make friends. I said, the same people that you think are so easily making friends, they've got the same issue with you. They all having the same difficulty. We've all come into an environment that you don't know each other. I advise her to join a few organization, like I think Afro-Caribbean Society. She should work, maybe become a secretary, do something just to expose that actively. So for parents, I would just say communicate, just keep a close eye on that child that may be withdrawing, that seems a bit quiet.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Professor Lekan.
Pay close attention to your children and engage with them. have real conversations and try to be a good example to your children. That's what I'll say, for now.
Thank you so much. Because again, like I said, we've not had the chance to answer a lot of the questions. So I'm thinking, if you think we should have a part 2, probably sometime next month, please put it in the question box. Can we touch on causes of anxiety? We have 2 minutes left. That was one of the questions I was going to ask, because we see a lot of it amongst our children now, depression, anxiety. If we can, okay, quick question, and please, can we make it as brief as possible? Depression and anxiety are rising amongst young people. Can you educate us on what mental health issues may look like in a child or teenagers? Dr. Yetunde, because can you help us with that? What it may look
All
like,
right.
and how
Thank you
parents
very
can
much.
support them.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, yeah. So, I think the way to look at it is to understand your child, before you start to notice those problems. So we usually talk about when there's a change in personality or in the behavior of a child. So some of the things that you might notice, especially when they're entering teenage years, which again might be difficult to differentiate from the normal biological changes that are happening about this time, is to notice that they might get withdrawn. They just want to be on their own for a long period. Even when you try to drag them to come join the family and all that, they just want to be on their own. They might just appear like most of the time they're angry, or they're irritable, they are on edge, they want to talk back at you, things that they don't do before, or they talk back at adults, or they are kind of irritable towards their siblings, especially the younger ones. They might be very hostile to them. Sometimes they might have problems with their academics, so their grades might drop, or they might start to have a drop in their grades. So they'll be doing well in school, and then suddenly they start not to do well. They might have a lot of other complaints about bodily complaints. They might just continue to talk about headaches, stomach pain, they might not eating well. You might notice that they are losing weight, or they appear like they are hiding a lot of things. Those might be signs. In terms of anxiety, you might actually see it in them. So they are tremulous, they have their hands are shaky, or they are just unduly afraid of a lot of things. So that might point to that. But clearly, what you see if it's depression is that they might just appear really gloomy and sad, or they're irritable, or they're on edge. They might become oppositional. They just don't want to obey or listen to instructions anymore. The teachers might complain that they've noticed a change in them also. And then their grades might start to drop if you compare to where how they have been. So these are some of the things that you might see. Sometimes if it's really like severe, you might have things to show that they are suicidal. They might talk more about death. They might talk about that they are tired of life. You might actually see them, writing notes. If they keep diary, you might see a lot of things within the diary, even though we are not supposed to check, but sometimes as parents, you need to go through some of these things to see what's going on. So you might see them writing things that shows that they are quite sad, and then some of them might go ahead to say a lot of things on their social media, and those, they might post things that can reflect that they are thinking that this life is not worth it. So those are some of the things you can see.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yetunde. I think we will definitely talk more about this when we have part 2, because quite a few people have said we should continue. So if you don't mind, guest barristers, I will have you back next month by God's grace. But I think for us parents, even as we leave today, it's to remember that it only takes one small step to make a difference at home. So engage your children more, get into their business. Don't be afraid to ask questions from the children. So maybe it's just start a conversation with them, listen more closely, and be present. Be present in your children's life, in their activities and everything that they get involved in. And so
present.
I want to thank our guest barristers, particularly Dr. Yetunde Adeniyi, Sister Jay Atie, Professor Lekan Aderemi. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who's joined us today.